Hello and welcome to halfway through World FND Awareness Month. We're on day 15 and today's topic is, do I think my FND will stop? And I thought that was a really interesting subject to talk about, actually, because it ties in with what I was talking about yesterday with the pathways that are formed in the brain. So there's two parts to the question, to the answer to this question, and both of them are true, but they might sound opposite. So the first answer is, in one respect, no, because you can't be cured of FND because you cannot unform those pathways in the brain, and because at this point they don't know what triggers the brain to start taking those incorrect pathways. And because they don't know what makes it do it, or sort of what makes it jump tracks, if you like, they don't know how to make it jump back. It's just a waiting game to see whether or not your brain does. So in that respect, you can't unform those pathways. You can't numb the part of the brain that is affected because you need that to function as a human being. And you can't cut it out for the same reasons. So in that respect, you can't be cured. So it will never go away. And I think, as I mentioned earlier on in the weeks before today, there's now evidence to show that the actual structural anomalies in the brain of somebody with FND do exist. So there are physical, tangible differences within the brain of somebody with FND, and so you can't change that either. However, as I've sort of alluded to already, the brain can stop going down those incorrect pathways and jump back onto the correct pathways again, and that's both a curse and a blessing, because it means that you can get better, but it means you can get bad again with no warning. So you're basically jumping around on tracks and with no rhyme or reason and no understanding of how or why that happens. They know that stress contributes to it, so most of the treatment is around managing your stress levels and making sure you're living in a mindful way, and that kind of thing, CBT training and stuff like that. However, that doesn't stop the brain from deciding when it's going to jump tracks and when it's going to jump back. So it's a bit of a weird one, and it's one of the things I find the most difficult to cope with. I can't just move on with something that I've lost, because there's always that vague hope that it's going to come back. And then if it does come back a little bit, so for me, for example, I might have a day where I think, I can feel my legs, or I've got more control over them. They're obeying me a bit more. And if that goes on for a couple of days, my brain just says, well, I'm fixed, I'm cured, and that's it. And I get really, really optimistic, overly so, and go into denial that I ever had anything wrong with me in the first place. And then, inevitably, I'll just go to sort of move or whatever, and my legs will be completely paralysed again. And for no reason, like I can just literally be sitting on the sofa watching a movie and go to transfer into my wheelchair and there's nothing there. Whereas I'd been, controlling them quite well beforehand. So then I get heartbroken. You'd think I learn, but I don't. I get absolutely heartbroken. I think, no, not again. And it happens over and over and over and over. And that is one of the things I just find so demoralising. Work so hard, be careful, apply yourself to all the sort of stress relief techniques and everything that there are, that they talk about. You can do all of those things, you can make headway, and then poof, like that, with nobody knows, and it's all gone again, and it's really hard. And my personality, the way I work, I would find it easier if I just could not do XYZ anymore. I would go through a grieving process, I would move on, and I would find joy in another way, or find a way of doing that in a different way. But I can't do that because there's always the promise, that bittersweet promise of it coming back. So I don't think FND will ever go away until they find a cure. That's my answer. Doesn't mean that there won't be times where the symptoms are not as present.